I've got my shop cat out here with me tonight. This is Pickle. I just gave him some food and he wants the food. He don't want to be on camera. All right, run along now, Pickle. Hold on. Oh, crazy cat. So now that the Johnny joint is in, I'm going to go ahead and start working on the suspension. So I totally forgot that I have to finish welding on the frame stiffeners. And I do have to go in and kind of fix some of these rust holes before I can put the suspension on. So what me and the owner of the Jeep have decided to make the CavFab stuff work with the Barnes unibody stiffeners, and we clearanced out the Barnes stiffeners. That way we can just make the CavFab stuff basically come, that way if he has to do anything different with the bracket there, it can come off. Because I don't think we're just going to weld everything on. I think we're just going to bolt the CavFab stuff on and then weld the Barnes stuff. So I'm probably going to go ahead and work on getting these stiffeners up here for right now. All right, I know it's probably very difficult to see in here, but basically I've got this unibody cleaned off, and then I did hit it with Steel It, so that way I'm not putting any raw metal on this Jeep at all. And then on the back side of this stiffener, I went ahead and painted this with Steel It. That way whenever I weld it, there's no raw metal exposed at all. So I've pretty much got to put this on just temporarily right now. That way I can line up the unibody stiffener. And so this goes just like that, factory holes. And I'm just gonna put one on here for right now. So I've got the CavFab mount just loosely bolted on, but I've got it lined up where I need it. So now I can take this Barnes unibody stiffener and put up here, and I've got bukus of clearance, which is awesome. Sweet. Whenever I do unibody stiffeners, what I do is I just take a jack and then a handle from another jack and just basically jack it up. That way it puts pressure on the unibody stiffener to rest up exactly against the unibody. That way you can get a better weld out of it. And there's no weird gaps or anything like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and jack this up just a little bit.
Who's there? I'm talking.
Bark twice if you're in Milwaukee.
Hello. So what I like to do is go ahead and push this up as far as I can. And obviously it's not going to get any better than that right here in this certain spot. So what I'll do is I'll tack weld it, and then I need to put some pressure on that. And that way I'm slowly tack welding it, and I am pushing up on it all together. So now I'm gonna get my welder out and go ahead and start tack welding these on. What? I will feed you in a second.
Feed me, if you dare.
I literally just met this cat today and he's already like bossing me around. And also I'm gonna be putting some clamps on here. That way I'm pulling in and pushing up at the same time. So you can see right here where I have completely welded up the frame stiffeners, and I went ahead and painted them, and then I went and put some seam sealer around them just to make sure that there's going to be no moisture or anything like that going in there. And I went ahead and got the passenger side done too. So now we're ready to put the CavFab brackets on. And the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm probably going to start on this side. The first thing I have to do is I have to get this stud pulled out. I don't know if y'all can see it right there. So I have to get this stud pulled out, and you can do this a number of ways. You can actually put 2 nuts on here and then tighten them up and then twist them off together. But since my welder's right here, I'm just gonna weld on something real quick. I'm just gonna tack weld that nut to the bolt, and then it'll just come right out. So now I can take my wrench and just spin the whole thing off. Just like that. So I ended up just putting a socket on it just because it would still fit. So now this should come right off. Oh yeah. So now that I have that stud out, I can focus on this next hole. So on the bottom side of the CavFab kit, on the bottom side right here, we're going to be using these 3 holes. We're using this one, and this one. So these 2 are already threaded for the bolts that come with the kit, but this bolt up here is not. So I'm going to have to drill and tap this hole right here. And I'm using a 11/32 drill bit, and I believe the tap is a M10 by 1.5. So now I'm going to take the bracket and put up here, and I'm going to go ahead and just put in the bolt. So I've got that snugged down pretty good. Don't have it torqued down just yet or anything. So that's basically going to tell me where this needs to go. So this is the outside portion. So my problem is the unibody stiffener is too thick. So these bolts on the bottom aren't lined up because it's being shifted out so much. It's here and it needs to be like here. So you probably won't have to do this to yours because we had to do some rust repair on the unibody right here. So it was a little bit thicker metal, and then we put an even thicker piece of metal, thicker unibody stiffener on top of that. And so this unibody section right here on this Jeep is particularly wide. So that is why I had to modify these brackets. So what I did was I just cut them and then just extended them out 1/2 inch and then just grinded them down, painted them. And that is not CavFab's fault or anything like that. This Jeep is just different than a lot of the Cherokees out there. So like I said, this is not something that you'll have to do. It's just something that I'm doing. So now I'm gonna get the bolts in. All right, so now I know where I need to drill my holes to put in the inserts for the unibody. I'm gonna have to drill through this thick unibody stiffener, but I know that it's gonna be super strong, and I know that the rust is not gonna come back. So this is best case scenario, but so I'm gonna mark these right here. I'm just taking a punch right there and just getting center, getting a nice spot there, and a nice spot there. So now I'm going to take all this back apart and start drilling my holes. So I figured out with this hole, the easiest method is I went ahead and drilled this one out to 1/2 inch, and then I came back with a 5/8 reamer. And what the reamer does is it makes the drill, as long as this hole is straight, whenever this the reamer goes in, it's gonna make sure that the hole is drilled straight across the unibody. So that way, when I put a bolt through, this hole isn't up here or down here or over here or anything. It's gonna keep it straight. And it also has a point on it, so it actually marks the backside of the unibody. Then I can come back with a drill bit and drill it out. And then I know that both holes are gonna be lined up when I come back with a 3/4 inch drill bit on this side. But we'll get to that in a second. There we go, all the way through. So now I can just verify that the drill is straight, and now I can mark the backside. So I can see the spot where I need to drill on the inside. Now I'm just gonna take this 1/2 inch drill bit and put it on my hole and then put it on my marking. Now I'm just gonna drill a little bit, and then I'm gonna take it back out and just verify that I'm drilling in the right spot. And we are, so we're good. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and drill that other side out to 1/2 inch. So now I can go ahead and open up these two holes to 3/4. Now, I will say you are not going to be drilling out the inside unibody holes to 3/4. Only these two holes, not the two holes on the back side. Just so you know. Like I said, I'm using a 3/4 inch drill bit, and I'm going to be drilling through all this unibody right here. All right, so it started raining, so I apologize for the rain noise, but what I'm gonna do before I try to get these inserts in is I got to paint all of this with some spray paint so that there's no exposed metal, raw metal. So I'm just gonna try to get as much as I can, and I'll also be doing the back side too, but I'm gonna show you how this works real quick. So you get four of these with the CavFab kit, and what you do is basically just take this metal sleeve right here, and that is going to insert inside of the unibody once you drill it out. And then what you do is you take the metal bracket right here and line it up just like that. And just carefully insert it. So sorry about the rain noise, but as you can see, I have all of these just loosely on. Whenever you're drilling these out, you just need to be careful for any wires like this, and like on the driver's side, there are fuel lines that run through, so you definitely don't want to drill any of those out. Basically, once you get everything started, the hard part is over. So I hope y'all can hear me, but I'm actually not gonna go ahead and torque all this down until I get this cross member in the center. So that's probably what I'm gonna work on now. So I went ahead and hit everything with some black spray paint just to make sure that I was able to get to it. And I went ahead and did everything on the passenger side the exact same way. So here's the cross member. I went ahead and painted the top side with some Seymour Paint, and it should be good enough. Yeah, it's good enough. I verified that my transmission mount is in the right spot, and then everything else looks like it's gonna line up. The first thing I'm gonna do is take this exhaust mount and just slide onto the exhaust right here. And this is just the factory part. All right, there we go. So now I'm gonna take the transmission mount, and this is just the factory one, and I'm going to run it up inside of this mount here. Got that all tightened up, so now I'm ready to put this cross member on. So in this cross member, you have 8 holes right there, so you got some options. So I'm just gonna try to line this up the best I can. Sweet, that went right together. That's awesome. So I'm gonna get a couple more bolts in. Holy crap. That lined up like perfectly. So now I'm just gonna start snugging these up just very slowly. Oops. And you don't want to snug any of these down until you have all the bolts started. So now that I have the cross member torqued down, I did go ahead and paint it all the way. And now I'm just going to lower the transmission down onto the cross member and line it up with the holes right there, and then I'll tighten those up, and then we'll be done with the cross member. Hey. Now we can get these arms together. So you've got your lowers right here, and then you have your third link upper. What I'm gonna do is go ahead and coat the inside of these threads with some anti-seize, just because you don't want these ever seizing up. So say if he wants to maybe put some additional spacers or do something different later on, he may have to take these apart, and if you don't put anti-seize, then they can seize up and you won't be getting these apart. So I'm just using a very generous amount of anti-seize in here. Now I'm taking this Johnny joint right here and screwing in, and that anti-seize just makes it go in so much better. And you can actually kind of work back and forth a little bit, making sure that that anti-seize is on both sides of that thread. So I'm gonna stop that one right about there, and I'm gonna do the same thing to the lowers. Go ahead and get anti-seize in both of them and get those Johnny joints on. I'm gonna go ahead and get these ends fixed. So these come with 2 rubber or polyurethane bushings, and then it comes with a metal sleeve. And basically, that metal sleeve goes in there just like this, and it just goes on the inside just like that. But before I put all those in there, I'm gonna get some of that good stuff and just lightly coat everything, just because I want it to be good and greased, for one, going in, and another thing, it's just gonna help prolong the life of that bushing. Before I put these in the Jeep, I went ahead and measured them out, and I couldn't find anything online on CavFab of what measurements to go by. So I kind of just did some research, and I just put these at 35 inches, and then I put this one at 34 inches. And what that's gonna do is basically just get me a ballpark with that front axle, and then I can just fine tune it once it's up under the Jeep. But I just kind of wanted to get a baseline. And so pretty much how these 3 links work, the lowers pretty much control the wheelbase of the axle, and then this adjusts the caster. The arms go in just like this. You can see the orientation right there. The Johnny joint goes to the frame side, and then the rubber bushing goes to the axle side. So now we're gonna try to get the passenger side in real quick. Well, I thought I said 40-inch LTDs. Yeah, with the axle and jack standing. All right. I think he's going like sideways or something. This upper link right here, it's got the open end. That's obviously going to go on the axle, and then the Johnny joint is going to get turned sideways, and it's going to go in the slot above the lower. And make sure all your grease fittings are where you can actually get to them. So now we got to get this upper in. So I'm not putting nuts on anything, just in case I have to basically take something back off. We were trying to lower the Jeep down, but the axle was kind of making us nervous on these jack stands. So since this track bar is adjustable on both ends, I can fine tune it once the weight is on the Jeep. I can fine tune the track bar, but so we're gonna go ahead and throw the track bar in. That way it kind of puts a little bit of control on the axle here. So with this adjustable track bar, I can just fine tune it just like that and get the bolt in. And that's pretty much it. So full disclosure on this, I did have to tweak the lowers. I had to adjust them 4 turns out. I had to adjust my upper 4 turns in to get my caster just right. So I like to run anywhere from 6, 7, 8 degrees caster in my Jeeps. So you need to make sure that if you ever install this kit on your XJ or Comanche or whatever, it's gonna vary because of the spring size. So that's pretty much why CavFab doesn't send you a length that you need to go by. It's pretty much because they don't know what springs you're gonna run. So now pretty much what I gotta do is I need to get the steering on, which is the tie rod and the drag link. And that's probably what I'm gonna work on now. So now we've got to get the steering on, and I'm gonna start with the tie rod right here. That's the long one is gonna be your tie rod. It goes from knuckle to knuckle. The tie rod actually does not get the misalignment spacers because it actually doesn't flex at all. All it does is just make sure that the tires are moving together. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna find the bolt. So we're gonna be using grade 8 hardware, and anytime that you're using steering or heim joints or anything like that, make sure you get grade 8. And if you get a kit and it doesn't come with grade 8 hardware, then you probably shouldn't get that kit. As you can see right there on the steer knuckle, the bolt is going down, and then the heim joint is actually going up. So now I'm gonna go over to the drag link, and I'm gonna get these misalignment spacers in. And now I gotta get my bolt for this and my washer. And I did go ahead and ream out this drop pitman arm. Pivot it up, yeah. Something that I did not realize was that when I was trying to put the drag link on, the sway bar mount is in the way. So we're gonna have to cut the sway bar mount off, and we'll worry about sway bars later on. I'm gonna take the grade 8 bolt that came with the kit, the washer, the misalignment spacer, and drop it into the drag link. So what we ended up doing was reaming out the stock pitman arm. The rule of thumb with these is just to keep these on the same plane, and by doing that you need to keep these pretty much just parallel with each other as much as possible. Alright, so now I'm going to take a 15/16 wrench and socket and go ahead and torque these down. Don't let it get you now. All that torque. I've got the steering all tightened up. I haven't done a proper alignment yet, so my jam nuts are not tight. The next thing I'm gonna do, I gotta get this Barnes steering box and unibody stiffener on. So what this is a really cool item from Barnes four-wheel drive that basically bolts where the sway bar bolts, and then you have two pieces that are right here. You have these two pieces, they go on each side of that right there, and this actually goes around the steering box, so that way it limits the amount of movement coming from the steering box. So this is just going to stiffen up this entire front section. So I have that same setup on my Comanche, and I absolutely love it. And sorry about all these heaters going. It is like super cold outside, and it's like sleeting right now. And another good thing about this kit is that it comes with all brand new grade 8 hardware. So you don't have to worry about reusing your old nasty gross bolts, because Barnes sends everything. I'm going to take one bolt on each side just to hold this bracket up while I get these two brackets wrapped around the steering box right here. So just gonna pop this up. Yeah, it's just like that. So now I'm going to get one started on this side. So Barnes actually makes the holes just a little bit bigger than what you need, so that way you can kind of adjust them, which is extremely helpful, especially when getting these on. So getting these on right here, it's not bad. You just kind of got to just basically drop them in place. It would have been easier if I'd have done this without the pitman arm on, but I always seem to do stuff backwards, I guess, I don't know. So I can just pop these in there. You can run this one right here on top. Now I just got to get these bolts in, and I'm just gonna snug these bolts down now. I have both bolts started with the washer and locking nut and everything like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and get all of these bolts in and go ahead and tighten each side up before I tighten down this clamp. Because I don't want to tighten down this clamp when the whole kit is actually going to be shifted up, and I just don't want it fighting against itself. So make sure that you torque down the clamp last. I got the steering brace on, and it looks really daggone good on there. And that's definitely going to strengthen up the unibody and how the steering feels, because that pitman arm and that steering box can't go anywhere now. So we are pretty much wrapped up in the front. I still got to go around and do an alignment and torque everything down, like the jam nuts and stuff like that. But before I do that, I'm going to actually take the rear axle out, which is what we're about to do now. And we're going to be putting on the CavFab leaf spring mounts. So yeah, let's get this thing in there.